Well, well, well. Hello again. It's back to the online communication with the folk in our church. How are you doing? How has your week been? Sunny in this summertime that we're experiencing in the UK? Sun? Did I say sun or sunny? Brrr. I'm just feeling the cold at the moment. And I don't know about you, and it's supposedly midsummer, a midsummer night's dream. You can see that the weather's gone to my brain. It's like midwinter, and we call it summer. And so that probably triggered the thoughts that I shared in our newsletter this week, the brief little letter that I write in our newsletter. Is there anything new under the sun, as the writer of Ecclesiastes asked in his writings so many centuries ago? Can there be anything new under the sun? And so, of course, in jest, I had to say, sun? What sun? For those of you who might be listening to this in another country, it is true. The sun over here in the Midlands of the United Kingdom is a rarity, and so when the sun does shine, we are out there enjoying it to the uttermost. Is there anything new under the sun? Well, yes, of course. There is a lot new under the sun, and if you are observant, well, I haven't yet, but you will notice how many people have had their haircuts since the lifting of lockdown, so that people can have their haircuts once again. I think it's been for about a week now in the UK that folk can have their haircuts. And then, of course, this weekend, coming from tomorrow, things like gyms and leisure centres and swimming pools will once again be open. People being allowed to swim in the leisure centres. I'm not sure about public swimming pools, I doubt that, but in the gyms, those pools can be used. And a great extent of the lifting of lockdown, almost for me to the extent of feeling it's a bit of a blast off out of lockdown, with so many of the constraints now being lifted. And I think one has to think that we need to tread carefully in this newfound freedom that we have offered to us at this time. I must say I've been somewhat amazed by the announcement this week of the Chancellor that the government will, in the month of August, the key holiday month here in the UK, the government will be subsidising meals for those in the public who go out to eat at any of the participating restaurants or pubs. And to the extent of 50% of the food bill of one's outing being subsidised by the government. I mean, that is just incredible. So, and of course that is Mondays to Wednesdays only, and quite a move by the government to promote the hospitality industry here in the United Kingdom. And so there's perhaps a sense of joviality and anticipation for the holiday period, given the lowdown of lockdown over the past 3 months. There is also the thing of the travel corridors, where upon return to the UK there will not be the requirement of quarantine if you come in from those specified countries. Again, another boon for those who are looking at travelling outside of the UK during the holiday time. It probably is because I am from Africa that I'm a bit sensitive to the fact that there is no mention of African travel at all. Africa doesn't even appear on the radar. And due to my ignorance, I have to say that may be due to helpful and informative scientific advice as regards the COVID virus. But on the other hand, it does feel a bit to me, as I say, I'm probably sensitive to it being African, that it is perhaps just a further or continuance of the view of Africa as the heart of darkness, as Joseph Conrad wrote some years ago now. Forgive me if I am being biased towards my home continent. What else is new under the sun at this time? Well, not that new, as I've said, to the United Kingdom, but the gentle rains that we have had over the last week, new in a way, to have had rain falling for 2 or 3 or even 4 days, not continuously but fairly intermittently, but these soft, gentle rains that we have enjoyed. And as I say, I have much appreciated those. What about us as a church, and more specifically the Methodist Church? Well, a few things new under the sun as regards the Methodist Church. Some of us may already be well aware that our conference met just a week ago, and where the life of the Methodist Church is discussed at some length. Planning is made, decisions are taken. And for the conference 2020, as it was, there was a lot that was new under the sun, and that conference was held via Zoom, which many of us are becoming used to. The way that we are now meeting as church leadership teams, as circuit leadership teams, etc. And we have been catapulted into the technological age, as it were, by the lockdown. Well, what is there new under the sun that has come out of our conference 2020? Well, there are a number of things, and I can't refer to all of them, but some of the key issues that have struck me as I've trawled through the internet and as I've read the Methodist Recorder, the conference report that came with the record of this week, there are a few issues that stick out for me, prominent for me, and which I'm going to just share on briefly. One of the things that is being said is that the Methodist Church is looking at a streamlining of structures. And the streamlining of structures is with a view to increasing the efficiency and the effectiveness of the mission of the Methodist Church of Britain. And so we look forward to this move of the Methodist Church over the next few years as it streamlines structures in line with the reduced size that has been occurring, reduction occurring over some decades now, but other factors that are informing a streamlining. And so we wait to see this and see the Methodist Church becoming more effective through that. What was also highlighted was the COVID effect on church finances and how the church connectionally will need to find savings and to really just improve the financial situation as it has been adversely affected through COVID. This is something we're obviously aware of as well at local church level and of course are already mindful of. A key document, if I can call it philosophy or move of the church, strategic move of the church, which gained approval at conference, was the God for All Evangelism and Church Growth Initiative of the Methodist Church of Britain. God for All, with 8 key components or parameters to it, guiding our evangelism and church growth into the next decade. Not only guiding, but catapulting us, energizing us, informing the work of the church as we seek to grow as a church and to take the gospel of Jesus Christ in new ways into our communities, into society. And so we wait to hear more of that at our local church level. Having said that, I want to share a quote from the Methodist Recorder this week, reflecting on conference, saying that in terms of God for All, the strategy is not about doing more. It is about making critical decisions to spend time energy and resources on the most important and life-giving things, and to stop doing things that do not reach new people and build up life. Very important, just in a nutshell, saying what the God for All is about. Having said that, God for All also supports another initiative of the church, which has been at work for some time now, but which needs to gain further traction, and which has once again been underlined through the Black Lives Matter initiative that came into focus recently. But that is that we are an inclusive church, fully inclusive. And that is regardless of race, of culture, of gender, of sexual orientation, etc., etc. But that we are a church for all, fully inclusive, representing everyone along the human spectrum, wherever we find ourselves. And once again, I want to quote from the Methodist Recorder for those who may not receive it or read it, and also just to give a bit of oomph to what I am saying. I quote, "The inclusive church has been developed, one that welcomes all who want to be part of the Methodist Church's life, upholds Methodist discipline, and resists discriminatory or belittling behavior, celebrates diversity, and affirms that there is no place for discrimination in our processes of selection, discernment, and appointment." That excites me, to be an inclusive church, a church that focuses on justice and respect for all persons, all people. A church that in that way we would hope and believe mirrors and reflects something more of the kingdom of God as taught about and instituted by the life of Jesus Christ. A few other things that came into the focus at conference, just for our young people to feedback. Some of our young people, or those who lead our youth, are aware of the annual Youth Regenerate conference, and due to the pandemic this won't happen on site this year. It won't happen in person, but the church and the youth movement are finding other ways to connect through online opportunities. And so we need to watch that space of how young people across our connection will be able to connect in an online way. And that will kick off in September. There was further focus on the disinvestment of our finances, the church finance at connectional level, in fossil fuel companies. And that has been happening over the years, but there is a final push for the Methodist Church to go all the way to 100% disinvest from companies that are involved in resourcing fossil-based fuels. And that comes from a climate perspective and an environmental perspective that has become more and more important in the life of our Methodist Church, as we understand it to be an essentially moral and missionary perspective in our church. We are called to love God's creation and to care for creation, and anything we do or support that undermines that undermines our missional credibility, and so very importantly under the spotlight. And then for those who are clergy or who are closer to what's happening in the life of the church, not only Methodist but ecumenical, there is that thing of online Holy Communion that has been a hot potato at the moment in the life of the church. Why can't we offer online communion? Many of our people just want to be able to receive communion, and in fact there are probably some clergy who are finding ways to get around the red tape in order to be able to offer this to the Methodist people at this time. It came under the spotlight at conference, And the conference decision was that no, at this point we cannot offer online communion, and has been referred back to the Faith and Order Committee to further reflect upon and to come back to the church again with its mind on this issue. Please forgive me, folk, if I don't sound too sympathetic for those who are in favour of online communion. Please, and I mean this sincerely, forgive me if you are a person who is shut away at home and all you long for is to be able to share again in this holy sacrament, which is a reminder of all that Jesus has done for us. Please forgive me for what I am about to say, because I do want to go on and say and suggest that this just feels so inward looking for me as a church. For me, it feels a bit like we are making this huge issue of online communion, spending minutes, hours, days reflecting upon and deciding upon a principle, a doctrine of how we can share communion effectively online with our people, when there are so many other more critical, burning issues in our world. It feels to me very self-centered. It feels to me that it's an example, yet another example of the church fiddling while Rome is burning. There are people who are homeless. There are people who cannot afford a meal. There are people who are being marginalized due to their sexual orientation or due to the color of their skin or due to their culture. There are families that are being broken apart by addiction, by crime, by hatred, whatever we want to name it, by illness, COVID being one of them, cancer another. And yet we, as the leadership of the church, are squabbling about whether or not we should be allowed to share communion online. God help us. God have mercy. I read again just this week, and my memory serves me correctly, the quote is attributed to a former bishop in the United Kingdom, William Temple, who said, and I've often quoted this, and the quote is attributed to different people, as so often happens through the passages of time. We forget who originally made the statement. However, the statement being, the church is one organization that does not exist for itself. It exists for others. That probably fuels my concern and displeasure at the church spending so much of its energy and resources on whether or not we can offer communion online. I mean, come on, what is this all about? Have we not lost the plot somewhere along the way? In the same Methodist Recorder of this week, there is a small article, a reflection by, I think, possibly a former president of conference, who raises the issue and shines a spotlight on the situation in Hong Kong, where China is seeking to impose more stringent rules and laws upon the people of Hong Kong from China. So a bit of oppression there. And the writer of this article indicates that the bank, the AHBC, has come out saying that it is supportive of the Chinese government in imposing these laws upon the people of Hong Kong. A major bank represented here in the United Kingdom, that is supporting oppression in Hong Kong. I hold that in one hand, and on the other hand I look at the online communion issue. I think, church, what is our focus? What is our focus, the Israel-Palestine issue. And I've mentioned others in terms of hunger and health and so on. So please forgive me, as I say, if I have rocked your boat or upset you. But the church, and again we were reminded of it, or I was reminded of it, reading the literature on COVID online this week and on the Methodist Church of Britain website. The Methodist Church believes that we are called to increase the awareness of God in the world. And yet we are nagging and arguing about online communion, increasing the awareness of God in the world. Let me not say any more. I might lose my dog collar. And so, coming back to us, maybe a bit of a pastoral word to end on before I get myself into trouble or more trouble. A pastoral word. I have found in a number of newspapers this week, including the Methodist Recorder, advertisements, full page advertisements that remind us to be careful as people in this lockdown period, in this COVID-19 world of ours. I think it would be very easy for many of us to get caught up with the wave of enthusiasm and freedom that we might be feeling with all of the unlocking that is happening around us. You know what it's like. You turn 18 and you can drink alcohol or you can drive a car, and with this, sometimes with the newfound freedom, we can be a bit silly. And I think it's quite possible that many of us may risk being silly with the newfound freedom that we have coming out of lockdown. The COVID virus is alive and well on planet Earth. It has not yet left us. It is living in the lives, in the flesh of human beings. It is incarnated, so to speak, in the people in society around us, many of which we would not know of. COVID is alive and well. Please be careful. Take care still, even as we come out of lockdown. Having said that, and maybe my final word for this week, and a concern that was triggered by further articles in the newspapers this week was the continued focus on the heroes of this COVID time, of the lockdown time. And I'm not against that, and one is just grateful for the people who have become heroes through all of this, and some who already should have been regarded as heroes. Please, I'm not undermining that. The concern that was triggered in my mind by the focus on the heroes, the continued focus on the heroes of the COVID time, is just that where does that leave you and me? Where does that leave you if you're sitting at home in a wheelchair and unable to do anything for anyone else in this time? Where does this leave you if you reside in a care home, a residential care home, and you feel that you've wished that you could do something to contribute to society through this time, but you're physically incapacitated and there is just nothing you have felt that you could do to be of any help to any other single human being through this very difficult universal crisis? And my fear is that the continued heroing of people through the media makes the likes of you and me, ordinary folk, who all we have been able to do is survive this time, and the hearing which might make us feel lesser human beings. It might make us feel depressed. It might make us feel hopeless. It might make us feel like oxygen thieves, as we used to say when I was at school. No good at all. And so just increase our sense of worthlessness and hopelessness. And I think this week I feel inspired, I feel inclined to say, if you are just the run-of-the-mill human being like me, and that all you've managed to do is survive lockdown. All you've managed to do is survive being isolated, or feel or survive the feelings of feeling even more isolated, then, dear friend, please don't let that make you feel any less worth of a human being. Don't let that make you feel a lesser category of human being. Don't let that make you feel that you don't meet the grade. You don't make par. Dear friend, far from it. You are the beloved of God. You are one of those for whom Jesus came to give his life. You remain one of those for whom Jesus still gives his life. You remain the beloved of God. We all have our times of excelling and where we shine in our lives. We all have those times of just surviving. It doesn't make us any less worthy. We are still one created in the image of God. And as I tried to say at the end of my little spiel, as we would say in South Africa, in the newsletter this week, remember 1 Corinthians chapter 13, that great passage on love, where Paul said that at the end of all things, when all is said and done, when COVID is over and forgotten about, might be only in generations to come, but when all is said and done, there will be only 3 things that remain: faith, hope, and love. And St. Paul went on to say, the greatest of these is love. Faith, hope, and love. Being a hero, I'm not saying we don't need them, but being a hero, being in the spotlight for all that we have done. No, said Paul, all those things will fade into oblivion. All that will remain is love. So, dear friend, whether you are isolated in a care home, whether you're confined to a wheelchair and there is nothing you can do for anyone else, whether you only have 10 pence left in your bank account, or 100 rands, or 50 euros, whatever it might be, and so there is nothing in financial terms that you can do for anyone else, that does not matter. All that matters is that you express love to all and sundry whom come into your sphere of being, whom you have the ability to relate to or to connect with. All that matters is that you love. We can love from wherever we are. We can love whatever our dispensation. We can love whatever our sexual orientation, whatever our color, whatever our culture, whatever our creed, whatever our age, whatever our ability, whatever our skills, whatever our worthiness in worldly terms, we can love. And that makes us worthy in the eyes of God. And so, dear friends, thank you. If you have managed to stay with me again this week, thank you for bearing with me. Thank you for being with me. I've felt your presence, even as I sit here alone in my study and talk to a little hole on the iPad, which is the camera. I have felt you with me. And more than that, I have felt God with me. And so thank you for giving me that opportunity to experience God and you in this way. I want to end with a blessing. I think it is an Irish blessing. If it is Welsh, forgive me, it's one of the two. But I want to end with this blessing today and leave this blessing with you, wherever you may be. May the road rise up to meet you. May the wind be always at your back. May the sun shine warmly upon your face. The rain fall softly upon your fields. And until we meet again, may God hold you in the palm of his hand. God bless you and keep you. With much love, goodbye.